At Burger Chef, they gave me the work schedule to fit the hours that I could work. And they may be able to do it for you, too. And it's fun to work at Burger Chef.
The bodies of Jayne Friedt, Mark Flemmonds, Daniel R. Davis, and Ruth Shelton have been discovered late this afternoon in Johnson County.
On the night of Friday, November 17th, 1978, 4 young employees of a Burger Chef restaurant on Crawfordsville Road in Speedway, Indiana, were closing up for the night. Jayne Friedt was 20, the assistant manager. Mark Flemmonds was 16. Daniel Davis was 16. Ruth Shelton was 17. By midnight, they were gone. The safe was open. The back door was ajar. About $581 was missing. And the 4 teenagers, still in their brown and orange polyester uniforms, still wearing their watches, still carrying their money, were nowhere in Speedway or anywhere anyone could find them.
On November 17th, 1978, 4 employees of the Burger Chef restaurant in Speedway, Indiana were abducted. 2 days later, on Sunday afternoon, a person found their bodies in rural Johnson County, Indiana, where they had been murdered.
It's getting colder, and it's just, my heart just sinks. And I remember that she's gone.
2 days later, their bodies were discovered more than 20 miles away, in a remote wooded area in Johnson County.
The crime still remains unsolved.
1978, just hours after closing time, 4 employees, ages 16 to 20, disappeared.
They were found murdered a few days later in Johnson County.
No one has been charged with a
Talk
crime.
about one of the most infamous crimes in state history.
Each had been killed in a different way. Shot, stabbed, bludgeoned. One had choked to death on his own blood. Investigators believed they had been marched into the dark, killed, and left in the cold November leaves while their families waited, and the police, who had not photographed the restaurant, had not sealed the crime scene, had let employees clean the floor the next morning, started an investigation that was already, before it began, behind. 47 years later, no one has ever been arrested. The case remains open. The detectives who worked it, the ones who are still alive, still think about it, still dream about it, still carry it. This is the case of the Burger Chef murders, and this is the open file. Speedway, Indiana, in 1978 was a small town. Technically, a separate municipality, surrounded by Indianapolis but distinct from it, defined by the racetrack that gave it its name. It was the kind of place where violent crime was rare enough to be shocking. In the 52-year history of the town, there had been only 3 recorded homicides before 1978. That year, something seemed to break. In July, a 65-year-old woman was shot and killed in her own garage, the 4th homicide in Speedway's history. In September, a series of 8 soda can bombings in 6 days injured 2 residents and left the entire community on edge. The bomber, a local musician and political activist, was eventually caught, but the fear lingered. People started locking their doors differently. They looked at strangers differently. They felt for the first time that the violence they read about in other cities had found its way to their streets. And then came November 17th. Burger Chef was a major fast food chain at the time, headquartered in Indianapolis, as ubiquitous in the Midwest as McDonald's or Hardee's. The location at 5725 Crawfordsville Road employed teenagers from the surrounding neighborhoods, kids working after school and on weekends, saving money for cars and dates and the small freedoms of being young in a small town. Jayne Friedt was the assistant manager. She was 20 years old, the oldest of the four, the one with the keys, the one responsible for locking up at the end of the night. Daniel Davis was 16. Ruth Ellen Shelton was 17, a few weeks from her 18th birthday, and Mark Flemmonds was 16, but he was not supposed to be there that night. He was covering someone else's shift, a last-minute swap, a small favor. The kind of thing a teenager does without thinking twice, without imagining that the shift he is picking up will be the last thing he ever does. The first person to realize something was wrong was an off-duty burger chef employee who stopped by the restaurant around midnight to visit his friends on the closing shift. He found the back door ajar. The door that was normally kept locked and barred at all times. Inside, the restaurant was empty. The safe was open. 2 empty currency bags and an empty roll of adhesive tape lay on the floor next to it. The 4 employees, Jayne, Mark, Ruth, and Danny, were gone. The restaurant's management reported the loss of approximately $581. More than $100 in coins remained in the cash register drawers, untouched. The purses belonging to Jayne Friedt and Ruth Shelton were still inside the restaurant. Their jackets, however, were missing, along with Friedt's white 1974 Chevrolet Vega. Speedway police responded. They did not photograph the scene. They did not dust for fingerprints. They did not call in crime scene technicians. The prevailing assumption, the one that shaped every decision made in those first critical hours, was that the 4 teenagers had stolen the money themselves and taken off for a night of partying. They were irresponsible kids. They would turn up in the morning. They did not. And by the time anyone understood that they had not left voluntarily, that they had been abducted, that the open safe and the missing cash were not the story, but the cover for the story, burger chef employees had already cleaned the restaurant. The floors had been mopped, the surfaces wiped. The restaurant reopened for business. The crime scene, what was left of it, was gone.
These aren't just victims. That was my sister. These aren't real people with real families, with real friends that deserve justice.
Well, I'm chasing answers. I'm chasing answers for Teresa and for the family members. They deserve closure.
Buddy Elwanger, a Speedway police officer eventually assigned to the case, would later say it plainly. We screwed it up from the beginning. Friedt's Chevrolet Vega was found that Saturday morning, about 1.5 miles south of the restaurant on West 15th Street. The passenger door was unlocked. There were no signs of a struggle. The car offered nothing, no fingerprints, no blood, no clue as to what had happened to the 4 people who had been inside it. And then, on Sunday afternoon, November 19th, 1978, hikers in a remote wooded area of Johnson County found the answer that no one wanted. The bodies of the 4 teenagers were found on Sunday, November 19th, 1978, in a remote wooded area of Johnson County, more than 20 miles from the burger chef where they had last been seen. The scene told a story, if anyone knew how to read it. Ruth Ellen Shelton and Daniel Davis were found first. They were lying side by side. Both had been shot multiple times in the back of the head with a .38 caliber handgun. The position of the bodies suggested execution. They had been made to kneel or lie down, and they had been killed without the opportunity to run. Jayne Friedt was found about 75 yards away. She had been stabbed twice in the chest with a hunting knife. The blade was still lodged in her body. The handle had broken off during the attack and was never recovered. The distance between her body and the others suggested that she had tried to run, had seen what happened to Ruth and Danny, had understood what was coming and had fled into the dark. She did not get far. Mark Flemmonds was found about 150 feet from the others, near a tree, on his back. He had not been shot. He had not been stabbed. He had been beaten, bludgeoned with some kind of heavy object, possibly a chain. And the cause of death was not the beating itself. It was asphyxiation. He had choked to death on his own blood. The witness provided one of the most significant leads in the case. Desperate, blind, terrified, and slammed directly into the tree. The impact knocked him unconscious. He fell on his back, and with blood pooling in his throat from the beating, with no one to turn him on his side, with no one to help, he suffocated, alone, in the dark, 20 miles from everywhere he knew. All 4 victims were still wearing their brown and orange Burger Chef uniforms. Money and watches were found on the bodies. The motive, whatever it had been, was not robbery, or it had stopped being robbery before the killing started. Something else had driven the killers to march 4 teenagers into the woods and murder them, each in a different way, and leave them in the leaves to be found by a hiker on a Sunday afternoon. The only eyewitness to anything unusual behind the Burger Chef that night was a 16-year-old girl. She had been walking near the restaurant shortly before closing time when she noticed 2 men sitting in a car in the alley. Both were white. Both appeared to be in their 30s. One of them, the one with a heavy beard and mustache, lowered his window. He asked her if she had any identification. He told her to leave, that there had been a lot of vandalism in the area. She left. She went home. And then, when the news broke, she came forward. The clean-shaven man had said nothing during the exchange. He had simply sat in the car, watching. The witness described him as having short, dark hair, or fair hair, depending on which report is cited. The details shift slightly over time, the way details do, the way memory softens edges and fills in gaps. The Speedway Police commissioned sketches of the 2 men. Later, investigators took the unusual step of enlisting the Purdue University Art Department to create 3-dimensional clay busts from the witnesses' descriptions. The busts were distributed to media outlets, displayed at press conferences, shown to anyone who might recognize the faces. They are still kept at the Indiana State Police Museum. 2 gray, expressionless faces, sculpted from the memory of a terrified teenager, frozen in time, still unidentified. The witness provided one of the most significant leads in the case. And the busts, for all their detail, for all the hours of sculpting and refining and displaying, never produced an arrest. The investigation into the Burger Chef murders was one of the largest in Indiana history. The FBI was called in. The Indiana State Police formed a dedicated task force. The Indianapolis Police Department and the Marion County Sheriff's Department contributed detectives. Hundreds of tips flooded in. Burger Chef offered a $25,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. And for all of it, nothing. Virgil Vandergriff, a detective with the Marion County Sheriff's Department, was assigned to interview witnesses. He did more than that. He went undercover in a bar on the west side of Indianapolis, where a man had reportedly been bragging about involvement in the killings. Vandergriff shot pool with him. He listened, and the man all but confessed, snapping his cue stick to demonstrate what he had done to one of the victims. But when police brought the man in for formal questioning, he passed a polygraph test. There was no physical evidence connecting him to the crime, no witnesses who could place him at the scene, no confession that would hold up in court. The man was released. Vandergriff kept going. He studied hypnosis and hypnotized witnesses to extract better descriptions. He consulted psychics. One woman in Ohio went through more than 100 mugshots, upside down, and picked out faces that matched suspects the police had already identified. Another psychic pulled out a Ouija board from under her sofa. Vandergriff got up and left. Theories multiplied. The leading one was a botched robbery. One of the employees had recognized one of the perpetrators, and what began as a simple cash grab became a quadruple murder to eliminate witnesses. Mark Flemmonds, who was not supposed to be working that night, may have been the one who recognized the robbers. He had not been factored into the plan. Whatever happened next, he was the variable. Another theory pointed to drugs. Jayne Friedt's brother, James, was arrested on cocaine charges in 1981 and briefly investigated for possible involvement in the murders. He was cleared within a week, but the suspicion lingered that the burger chef had been a front for something, that the murders had been a message, that the killer was someone Jayne knew. The ISP task force was disbanded in June 1980 without making a single arrest. And then, in 1984, the phone rang in Mel Wilsey's office. In December 1984, 6 years after the murders, Detective Mel Wilsey of the Marion County Sheriff's Department received a phone call. An inmate at the Pendleton Correctional Facility wanted to talk. His name was Donald Wayne Forrester. He was serving a 95-year sentence for an unrelated sexual assault, and he wanted to confess to his involvement in the Burger Chef murders. Wilsey obtained a court order to bring Forrester to Marion County, and Forrester talked. He knew details that had not been published in the newspapers. He knew the handle of the knife had broken off, a detail that had been kept from the public. He knew the positions of the bodies when they were found. He knew the layout of the woods, and he provided a motive. According to Forrester, Jayne Friedt's brother James owed money from a drug deal. Forrester and 3 associates went to the Burger Chef on the night of November 17th to threaten Jayne, to collect the debt from her, or to send a message through her. But when Mark Flemmonds intervened, when he tried to protect Jayne, a fight broke out. Flemmonds fell and hit his head on the bumper of a car. Believing he was dead or dying, Forrester and his accomplices made a decision. They could not leave witnesses. They abducted all 4 employees, drove them to the woods in Johnson County, and killed them. Forrester claimed to have shot Ruth Shelton and Daniel Davis. He named the 3 other men who, he said, were responsible for killing Jayne Friedt and Mark Flemmonds. He agreed to lead police to the spot where he had thrown the murder weapon into a river. The river was searched thoroughly. No gun was found. But Wilsey didn't stop. He interviewed Forrester's ex-wife, who told him something that confirmed, in Wilsey's mind, that Forrester was telling the truth. She said that shortly after the murders, Forrester had driven her to a wooded area and retrieved several shell casings, which he then flushed down a toilet. Wilsey obtained a warrant to excavate the septic tank at the house where Forrester had been living. The search turned up multiple spent .38 caliber shell casings. The case, it seemed, was breaking open. After 6 years, after thousands of hours, after psychics and hypnosis and busts sculpted at Purdue, the answer was sitting in an interrogation room, talking. And then someone inside the Marion County Sheriff's Department leaked the details of Forrester's cooperation. The news hit the papers. Forrester's family, and presumably the families of the men he had named, learned that he was cooperating. Within days, Forrester recanted his confession, claimed it had been coerced, and refused to cooperate further. Without his testimony, without the murder weapon, without any physical evidence placing the 4 named accomplices at the scene, the case could not be prosecuted. Forrester was never charged with the Burger Chef murders. He was returned to prison to serve out the remainder of his 95-year sentence for the rape conviction. He died of cancer in 2006 at the age of 55. His doc number was 2242. Detective Mel Wilsey never forgot it. It is the number that still surfaces in his mind. 4 digits, 2242. Every November, when the anniversary comes around, when reporters call, when the case that he believes he solved reminds him that believing and proving are not the same thing. Detective Stoney Vann inherited the Burger Chef case in 1998 and held it for 20 years. Longer than any investigator before or since. He retired in 2018. He still thinks about it. He still dreams about it. Vann developed a theory, and it is the theory that the Indiana State Police still consider the most likely. He believes the killers were part of a robbery crew. 5 men who had been hitting Burger Chef restaurants and other fast food chains across Indiana in the late 1970s. The crew had a pattern. They worked in pairs. They would wait behind the restaurant near closing time, ambush a worker taking out the trash, and force their way inside through the back door. They would clean out the cash registers and leave. Sometimes they would steal a vehicle, drive it to a getaway car, and abandon it. They used a .38 caliber handgun, the same caliber that killed Ruth Shelton and Daniel Davis. They had never killed anyone before, so why, on November 17th, 1978, did 4 teenagers end up dead? Vann's theory is that Jayne Friedt recognized one of the robbers. She had worked at a different Burger Chef location before transferring to the Speedway restaurant. The robber had been a regular customer at her previous job. He knew her. She knew him. And when the masks came off, or when the robber spoke, when his voice registered, when her eyes met his, she knew who he was. At that moment, the robbery stopped being a robbery. It became a kidnapping. It became a murder. It became 4 murders. Because once Jayne Friedt could identify one of the robbers, all 4 employees had to die. Witnesses could not be permitted to survive. Vann interviewed one of the surviving suspects decades later. The man did not confess, but he did not deny either. He told Vann that his crew might have been responsible. He said he was not there that night. He did not say it was impossible. He did not say it was wrong. 3 of the 5 suspects are now dead. 1 from a heart attack, 1 from suicide, 1 from homicide. 2 may still be alive, living quietly in Johnson County. Vann declined to name them publicly. They are not fugitives. They are not officially suspects. They are persons of interest in a case that, after 47 years, remains open. A file that is still active, still waiting, still hoping for a piece of evidence that 47 years of investigation have not produced. There are 2 pieces of evidence that the Indiana State Police hope might one day solve the Burger Chef murders. The first is a fleece-lined denim jacket. The second is a brown and orange Burger Chef uniform shirt. The shirt was found near one of the victims, not on them, as though it had been discarded during the struggle, or ripped away, or left behind by someone who was wearing it when they should not have been. Both items are candidates for DNA testing that was not possible in 1978, when DNA had not yet been discovered as a forensic tool, when the best evidence was blood type and fingerprint, and the hope that a witness would come forward with something more than a clay face. The Indiana State Police have said that technology continues to improve and that they are hoping to be on the cusp of techniques that will provide substantial leads. The case file, handwritten documents, typed reports, photographs, sketches, has been digitized into a searchable database. But hope and technique are not the same thing as evidence. The jacket and the shirt may yield DNA that belongs to one of the killers. They may yield nothing. They may yield something that points toward a suspect who is already dead, or a suspect who was never named, or a suspect who has been living in Johnson County for 47 years, waiting for a knock that has never come. Teresa Jeffries was 12 years old when her sister Ruth was murdered. She was home with her brother Gordon when their parents walked into the dining room. It was November 1978. Ruth had been missing for 2 days, and then their mother looked at Teresa and said the words that would define the rest of her life. Ruth Ellen is in heaven with your grandma and grandpa. Teresa was 12. She did not fully understand. She understood enough. Ruth Shelton was 17 years old, a few weeks shy of her 18th birthday. She was a high school student. She worked at Burger Chef after school and on weekends, saving money, building a life that she would never get to live. She left behind a family who loved her, a sister who still remembers her, and a name that has become part of one of Indiana's most notorious unsolved crimes. Teresa Jeffries spent decades waiting for an answer that never came. She told reporters years later that she had always had some hope, but there's a difference between hoping and believing. She said she knew there was always a chance the case could be solved, but she was not going to hold her breath. And then she said something that is the truest thing anyone has ever said about the Burger Chef murders. Not a single one of them had victim across their name tag. They're people. They deserve to be remembered for who they are, rather than what happened to them. Jayne Friedt, Mark Flemmonds, Daniel Davis, Ruth Ellen Shelton. 4 people, 20, 16, 16, 17, who were not victims in the moments before they became victims. They were kids. They were closing a restaurant. They were emptying trash and counting drawers and looking forward to the weekend. And then they were gone. And the only thing anyone remembers is the way they died, not the way they lived. In the summer of 2018, 40 years after the murders, the Speedway community raised money to plant 4 red oak trees in Leonard Park. Each tree bears a plaque with the name and a short biography of one of the victims. The fundraising goal was met within 24 hours. With the extra money, a marble bench was installed, a place to sit, to remember, to hold the weight. On November 10th, 2018, 1 week before the 40th anniversary, a small dedication ceremony was held. Family members attended, friends attended, detectives attended. The trees were young, their branches still thin, their roots still finding their way into the soil. But red oaks live for hundreds of years. They will outlast the case file. They will outlast everyone who remembers November 17th, 1978. They will still be standing. 4 trees, 4 names, 4 lives. Long after the question of who killed the closing crew has been answered or lost. In January 2024, the building that had housed the Burger Chef, later a pawn shop, was set for demolition. By March, it was gone. The site at 5725 Crawfordsville Road is empty now. No marker, no plaque, just bare ground where 4 teenagers clocked out for the last time and walked into the dark. The Burger Chef murders produced no arrests. but they produced something else. A generation of detectives who carried the case long after the file stopped being active. Mel Wilsey still remembers the doc number 2242. Donald Wayne Forrester, the man he believed was involved in the murders and knew who else participated. The man who confessed. The man who recanted. The man who died of cancer in 2006. Unreachable, unaccountable, beyond the reach of any court. Virgil Vandergriff went undercover in a bar. He consulted psychics. He studied hypnosis. He chased leads to Cincinnati, Milwaukee, Chicago, Dallas. He spent years of his life on a case that defined his career and broke his heart. He retired. He still thinks about it. Stoney Vann was the lead investigator from 1998 to 2018. He developed the robbery crew theory that remains the closest thing to an official answer. He interviewed a suspect whose statements investigators found highly suspicious. He retired without making an arrest. He told a reporter shortly before leaving the case, "This is the type of case that I will take to my grave." 3 detectives, 3 theories, 1 case, unsolved, open, waiting. The jacketed evidence, the denim coat, the uniform shirt, is still in an evidence locker. The clay busts are still in the State Police Museum. The shell casings from the septic tank are still catalogued somewhere, still waiting for a match that technology might eventually provide. And the men who dedicated their careers to finding the killers, the men who believe, with varying degrees of certainty, that they know who did it, are left with a thing that no detective ever wants to carry. Knowledge without proof, belief without evidence. A case that is solved in their minds and unsolved in the eyes of the law. Jayne Friedt was 20 years old. She was the assistant manager. She was the one with the keys. One theory suggests she may have recognized one of the robbers. A possibility that could explain why the robbery escalated into murder. A man she had served before. A man who knew she could identify him and decided that she would not get the chance. Mark Flemmonds was 16 years old. He was not supposed to be there that night. He was covering someone else's shift, a small favor, an extra shift, a decision made without thinking a victim who was not even scheduled to work that night. Daniel Davis was 16. He was shot in the back of the head alongside Ruth Shelton, in the dark, in the woods, 20 miles from everything he knew. Ruth Ellen Shelton was 17. She was weeks from her 18th birthday. She never got to be 18. She left behind a sister, Teresa, 12 years old, who would grow up without her, who would spend the next 47 years waiting for an answer, who would say the truest thing about all 4 of them. Not a single one of them had victim across their name tag. They're people. The Burger Chef building is gone now, demolished in 2024, scraped away, reduced to an empty lot. The evidence is in a locker. The clay busts are in a museum. The detectives who worked the case are retired or dead or dying. And the people responsible, whoever they were, however many there were, may be dead or may still be living quietly somewhere in Indiana. Growing old, keeping a secret that has held for 47 years. The case file is still open. The Indiana State Police still investigate. The 2 pieces of evidence, the jacket and the shirt, remain available for future forensic testing that investigators hope may one day identify those connected to the crime. And in Leonard Park, 4 red oak trees are growing, slowly, steadily, the way trees grow, each with a name on a plaque. Jayne Friedt, Mark Flemmonds, Daniel Davis, Ruth Ellen Shelton. 4 kids who closed a restaurant on a Friday night in November 1978 and did not come home. The trees will outlast the file. They will outlast the detectives. They will outlast the killers. they will be standing, still growing, still reaching toward the sky, when the answer finally comes, or when it becomes clear that it never will. There is no answer to the question of who killed the closing crew, only the weight of it. And sometimes, in cases like this, that weight is all that remains.